Hello. As a rule of thumb, there is an easy way to know if an application was written using Ruby on Rails. You can just go to the application and go to /404 and see the default error page for the page doesn't exist, or go to /500 where something went wrong. It means the data that should have been on a page didn't render correctly. Or you can go to just some kind of random URL and again see the 404 status, the page doesn't exist. So it would be really cool for you to be able to customize these pages in your Ruby on Rails app, and this would make your app look much more complete. And let's see how I did it before. Here, for example, I have a 500 internal server error page where I've used Tailwind for styling, and also inserted an image and added a link to homepage. And here the same, but for the 404 page. So let's see how we can add something similar to a new Ruby on Rails application. Now here I have just generated a new Ruby on Rails application, and in the params I said that I want to use Tailwind for the CSS. So let's have a look at the application. I will go to bin dev to start my new Rails app. Here it is, and I have just one page, the root page and this static pages index. And now I want to go to /404 and I see this page, and 505 I see this page. So if we go actually into our application that we have generated with the scaffold, we see in the public folder 404 and 500, where actually we have a whole document with a layout, with some custom CSS that comes with a scaffolded Ruby on Rails new application, and this text, we are sorry, and if your application, whatever. So how can we use our CSS framework, and how can we actually customize these pages from within a Rails app? Well, one actual good approach would be to remove these pages completely and move them to our views folder. So I have just deleted these two pages, and now I will say Rails generate controller. The name will be errors, and I will have two pages there. Internal server error and not found. And it has generated these two roots, it has generated a controller and a views folder with two pages that we're going to update. But first of all, in the roots, I'm going to say that we're going to match /500 via all two errors internal server error, and we're going to match 404 to errors not found. Okay, and now I will go to our application.rb and say that config.exception app equals self.roots. So we're not going to go to the public folder to look for the files, but we're going to go to our roots, and from the roots we're going to be redirected to our controller actions. Okay, so now going back to our controller actions, if we go to errors controller, here we will have to say that this is actually a 500 status page and that this is a 444 status page. So I will say render status 500 and render status 404. Okay. Now let's try navigating into one of these pages. I will go to bin dev and to /500, and here you see we are actually using the application's layout now, and we are rendering this page internal server error. Okay, and if we go to our logs, you see completed 500 internal server error. If we go to 404, completed 404 not found. So the logs are correct, not found and internal server error. But looking at these pages, you see you will most likely not want to use the same layout file for your application and the errors. For example, in the application you can have a header, a footer, and whatever else, and you don't want to have the header and footer in your exception pages most likely. So you would want to create a separate layout. I will go to layouts and create a new errors.html.erb. I will copy this layout, but I will remove everything that is application specific. I will also maybe have some custom CSS, not the same as for the whole application. And here you see I go to 404 and I don't have these CSS classes applied. I don't have the header and footer. I go to the normal application. I have the header and footer and the default CSS that was generated by Tailwind. So, okay, let's now customize this page a bit. But yeah, before I forgot, most likely, often you would have some kind of like before actions inside the application, like before action, authenticate user, whatever. And for your error pages, you don't want to have anything inherited from the application controller. You will want to inherit from action controller base, so that no before actions are applied here. This is also important. Okay, now let's go to the styling. So I'm going to the errors HTML ERB, and you see it by default will try to look for a layout with the same name as the controller, and if it doesn't find it, it will try to inherit from application. So we are using errors HTML.erb, and I will first of all try to place all the content in the center. So I will say grid, height, screen, and place items center. Okay, and now let's maybe customize these pages a bit. So internal server error, let's say here we will have equals action name.humanize. So yeah, I'm looking at the 500 page. Internal server error, we can also put the status, so have something like response.status. Let's see, response.status. Here you see 500 internal server error. Now we can put something like something went wrong, and add a link to go to the home page. And it will redirect to root URL. Yeah, these generators are not being helpful. Okay, so we've got a link to homepage. Let's add some class, as we are using Tailwind here. You see in the errors HTML we are using the Tailwind styles. So text blue 500, for example. Let's center everything here also. Class text center. Let's apply everything same to our 404 page. So going to 404, I will apply everything else, but I will just say this page does not exist. Okay, and maybe you would also want to add a few images. Now I myself have prepared a couple of images for 404 and 500. Let me import them into the application. So I'll go to images and import these two images. So for not found, it will be 404. I will have image tag. I can actually have response status .png. The response status for this page is also always going to be 404, and for this 500. So I can maybe add this to both pages. I've got one image with the name 404 and one with 500, and let's see if it works. I go to 404, I have this image, to 500 and this image. And now when you push these changes to production, most likely instead of having these kind of default errors, you will have the ones that you have just created on your own using your styles. So that's about it. Thanks for being with me, and see you in the next one.